earth. Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
Happy 4th of July weekend. Let's try that again. Happy 4th of July weekend. Thank you. I have to do an Esther Nicholson. Can I get an amen? All right. I had this little white Stetson that I bought yesterday and put it on this morning to walk across the street, and Cynthia says, "You look like a Georgia preacher." So I said, "Yeah, I'm going to bring my best Baptist to the core to the church today." So, but I won't. I was laughing or thinking as Reverend Mary was talking about what's our norm for 4th of July weather here. You know, it's normally hot and like that, and in Seattle today is the official first day of summer normally. It usually happens the day after the 4th of July when the fireworks have just gotten rained out. And that the 5th of July is the kind of normally first sunny day that you have. This year they're having a different experience. And so it's interesting, isn't it, what we get used to. What's our normal? What's our normal? You know, and they're having a different normal. They're having a summer that's a little more like Reading, you know, a little toned down. It's not 105, but, you know, it is up in the 80s and 90s up there. And they're kind of going, oh my God, you know, what do we do? And so it's interesting to think about what do we think of as normal? What is my normal? What is my expectation? So a little over a couple hundred years ago, there was kind of a norm in this country that we were run by an empire across the seas, paid taxes and without a whole lot of representation, I believe, and stuff like that, until finally some people said, you know, enough of that. You ever have anything in your life where you say enough of that? Yeah? Yeah? So they said enough of that, and they wrote this little thing called the Declaration of Independence. That was kind of after things had gotten pretty ugly by that time with the British. The shot heard around the world had been fired about a year ago, or a year before that, and all sorts of stuff was happening. There was basically a, you know, pretty much war going on before they even wrote the Declaration of Independence. But the founding fathers came together, 56 of them signed this document. And I love it because there's the statement in there that I think almost all know practically by heart, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's a founding statement of our country. That's the founding statement in which each of us was born or has moved into this country or has chosen to be here and to play with. It's a vision statement for who we are. Isn't that a great vision statement? And so, thank you. And so, like all vision statements, remember I talked a couple weeks ago about vision statements, and if you have a vision statement, it should scare you. It should be bigger than you. You know, and all these guys who signed it knew that as I think John Adams put it, you know, we all need to hang together, and Benjamin Franklin chimed in and said, yeah, we all need to hang together or we're all going to hang separately. You know, because they all knew that they were in deep trouble with the British if this thing didn't work out. And some of them got in deep trouble with the British anyways and lost everything they had, some including their lives. But it's a vision, and a vision calls us to more. Oftentimes we hear the vision, and we don't even understand the vision that we're writing down or that we hear. And I love it because the phrase in there that all men are created equal. And of course, when they wrote that, what they meant was all white landed gentry were created equal, right? And so over time that changed. You know, a couple of signers actually, by the time the war was over and late in the 1700s, started freeing their slaves because they said, you know what, I can't believe in this vision and enslave another person. They got the vision. The vision was bigger than what they had originally seen it as. In 1848, there was something called the Seneca Convention, which was the first gathering of women in this country who said women have a right to vote. Women should have equal rights, and that the Declaration of Independence should be that all people are created equal. And so that's the idea that we're playing with today. All people are created equal. I like that vision. How about you? Yeah. So we are all created equal. You know, this ties back into Ralph Waldo Emerson's statement that we are all inlets of the divine. We may become outlets, but we are all inlets of the divine. We are all one of that infinite presence. We are that already, just because of who we are. We don't have to do something to earn it. We don't have to have something. We don't have to pay something, buy something. We already are that. That's the vision. Religious science has a kind of a similar vision statement that talks about freedom. Freedom was big with Ernest Holmes. If you've ever read the textbook, you've noticed that. And it's one of the things that I think, because this is an American religion, because this is a teaching that is founded in America, that idea of freedom is so big in it. And on the very first page of the Science of Mind textbook, under the chapter The Thing Itself, he says, the divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. All instinctively feel this. You know this, don't you? Freedom is our birthright. The truth points to freedom under law. Thus, the inherent nature of man is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a life wonderful in its scope, a love beyond our fondest dreams, and of a freedom which the soul craves. And in that statement, he gives us the key to tapping into our freedom. And that is the listening to the inner voice. The listening to that voice within, that voice of spirit within us. Jesus, a few years before that, had said, seek ye first the kingdom. That's the listening to the inner voice. Every mystic who's ever talked about it, the Buddha, the Tao, has always said, go for that inner voice. Go within first. And that's our source. And so we seek first the kingdom. We listen to that inner voice. Establishing our own freedom is similar to our country's freedom. Have you noticed? It's not easy. Anybody besides Luke? Anybody notice it's not easy? Okay? It's dangerous. We have to say no to what we don't want. That was the very first part of the Declaration of Independence. No to the British rule. I was in a class with somebody the other day that we're working on creating vision statements of what we want. And the person talked about creating a vision statement for their relationship. And they declared not only what they wanted in their relationship, but also what they didn't want in their relationship. And they were very clear on both. And so it's important to say, this is what I don't want. You know, we oftentimes talk in religious science that we should be open to everything and declare what we do want and stuff like that. But it's okay to also say, you know what, and this is what I don't want. I will not take this in my life anymore. Part of what holds us back, our British Empire, if you will, is our own inner beliefs. Our own beliefs within. It's the big bad empire. Whether it's the British Empire, whether it's the empire of Star Wars, whatever it is, it intimidates us, right? You ever notice? How many people besides me have been intimidated by their inner belief system? You know? Who are you? It tells us that we can't survive without that set of patterns, that set of beliefs. It gives us stories and images of fear, isolation, and poverty. You don't have to stick your hand up, but I know there's people besides me who have had that little image of ending up as a bag person sleeping underneath a bridge somewhere in their lives, right? Let's see a few heads nodding, thank you. We get the message that we're not good enough, that we're fundamentally flawed, and all this other wonderful junk is back in there, right? That's our British Empire. That's what's holding us back from our freedom. That's where we declare our independence from. And of course, all those beliefs internally get mirrored, don't they? There's people outside who carry the same set of beliefs who will support us in believing that. Because it's a whole lot safer to stay where it's comfortable. You know, back in the Revolutionary War, there were revolutionaries and there were Tories. Remember what the Tories were? Anybody? Good fan of history? The Tories were the conservatives. The Tories were the ones who wanted to keep things status quo. God, king, and country. They didn't want this independence thing. They wanted to keep it, you know, just it's fine just the way it is. Sure, it's a little awkward once in a while. Don't mess with it too much. We have those voices in our head, right? Don't mess with it. It's not bad. If it's not broke, don't fix it. You know, sure, the inner voice is screaming for I want more because that's our nature. No, don't do that. So it takes a great deal of courage to get free of these beliefs. And nothing is guaranteed. Even if we get free of these beliefs, nothing is guaranteed in freedom. Have you noticed? When America was first founded, it was called the Great Experiment. And it still is. The Great Experiment. When you do an experiment, do you know the outcome? Not usually. You're doing an experiment to find the outcome. Okay? And so we're still in that process of, can we have a democracy that actually works on the planet? That's the experiment we're still playing with today. We're still answering that question today. But the vision was big enough. The vision caught the attention, caught the souls, caught the imaginations of so many other people that it has been the inspiration for so many other countries since then to also declare their freedom, to say, you know what, we're not going to stay in bondage. The French did it just a couple decades later. All sorts of other places have done that ever since then. This is a powerful vision. What I want to say about the two factions, the revolutionaries and the Tories, that exist within us, guess what? They're both necessary. They're both necessary. In the writing of history, the Tories are the bad guys, right? The way that our history turned out, they're usually the bad guys. What's that? From our perspective, yes, they were the bad guys. And if the war had gone the other way, they would be the good guys. But we need both of them. We need both the desire to change and the balance to not go off the deep edge. See, if you're just constantly in revolution, it's called anarchy. There's no stability. You know, I equated it to the movie Thelma and Louise. You know, you get your revolution on so far that you drive your car off the cliff, you know, after having made a complete mess of your lives. And so you need a little balance. On the other hand, you don't want to hide under your security blanket. I think of Linus and Peanuts. Hide under your security blanket for the rest of your life either. So a balance between the two is a necessary process, is a healthy process, is an ability to say, you know, I'm willing to work with my inner beliefs, but I'm not willing to smash them into smithereens. When I first got into this kind of a teaching, I was introduced to it in a different process. They told me, you know, you can make however much money you want to make. And I said, great, I'll take $1 million a year if you want to do that. That's a nice amount to make, right? I think it is. Okay, somebody else back there will take it. Thank you, Michael. But after a while, I realized that my belief system could not encompass that in any way, shape, or form. I couldn't believe in the possibility of me making that much money. At the time, I was making about $3,000 a month, or $36,000 a year. And I couldn't make the leap from $36,000 a year to $1 million a year in my mind. And so it just became a nice, fun number out there that I felt guilty after a while that I wasn't making because, of course, there's infinite possibility and I should be able to do this, right? But I finally had to listen to the voice within that said, you know what, that amount scares me. But I could adapt to $50,000 a year. I can take that in. And so I started working, that's called working with and listening to the inner belief system and working with it to expand it but gently expand it. To where your life doesn't get turned upside down, but gently starts to grow. Have you noticed that most growth in nature happens gently? It takes time to make an oak tree. It doesn't just go from acorn one day to oak tree the next. Okay? Redwoods, I think, take a little time. So it takes time to do this stuff. And so being gentle with ourselves is the listening to the part of us that says, let's keep things the same and say, look, let's expand a little bit. My friend Maria Nemeth, who wrote the book, The Energy of Money, talks about when we move from the idea stage into making it real in the physical stage, we hit a border. And she says what we mostly run into is trouble at the border. Trouble at the border means that when we try and move from idea stage into action, into form, that's where we meet our resistance. Okay? And she says the way to deal with that is to take small steps, to take gentle steps so we don't smash up against our resistance. If you want to get into a pool of water, the best way to do it is to walk in gently rather than diving from 300 feet up and trying to hit the water that way at full speed, right? Have you noticed? I've done it both ways, and no, I haven't. I've seen people who've done it both ways. Do we do it gently? Do we do it little small steps? And so then we don't have to create a war with ourselves. It becomes instead an evolutionary rather than a revolutionary process. And so we gain balance by listening to that inner voice. We gain that balance. What is mine to do here? How do I expand in a way that works for me, that doesn't completely tear apart everything in my life simultaneously, but that does move me forward? Our freedom practice, if you will, is listening to our inner voice. It's listening to that little voice within. And our freedom practice takes time. It takes willingness. It takes putting value on the process of listening to the inner voice, right? See, the people who signed the Declaration of Independence put value on their independence. The people who were opposed to it put value on keeping things the same and their business as it was. Do we want to put value on our freedom and our independence enough to listen to that still small voice within and let it guide us through a process that, rather than being a war, becomes a gentle process of unfolding and growth? Would you be willing to do that? To value that? So we have many examples throughout history of independence established with anger, with separation, and with war, including our own country. And we've got lots of examples. We know how to do that one well, right? Right? Yeah. As a species, we know how to do that well. We've also done that same process within ourselves, right? How many people besides me have been at war with themselves or some aspect of themselves? Yeah. My motto for a long time when I was doing personal growth work was, the war is over, the war is over, the war is over. I had to kind of talk myself down from this, and I still do sometimes. I still get into this us versus them process. And so I still have to remind myself, the war is over. We do this with relationships. We know how to do relationships and the growth of relationships, or the growth of our freedom around relationship, with war and with separation, and war is called divorce in relationship. Nasty divorce, I should say. What if we could learn a new example? What if we could learn a new example within ourselves of listening, of balance, of respect? If we could respect ourselves in our own inner process, then take that out into a larger atmosphere, into working with other people and working with that. What if instead of being at war with ourselves and each other, we started to create an interdependence? I have a friend, a minister, Reverend Trish Hall, who's on the East Coast, who wrote a few years ago a Declaration of Interdependence, and I'd like to read from that. The preface, what she says before this, is that July 4th is a lot more than a long weekend of festivities. It's about a group of people taking a stand for their beliefs. In 2002, I pulled out a copy of our Declaration of Independence. It is truly an awesome declaration of severance in order to experience freedom, freedom from oppression. It wasn't undertaken until the level of frustration and anger had reached explosive proportions. There is a part of me that can't but wonder what the course of history might have been if, long before the oppression and resulting hostility, all parties had granted respect to one another, released their attachment to greed, avarice, and dominance, and awakened to the interrelatedness of all aspects of life on this planet. Pondering this, I composed a Declaration of Interdependence, which was later printed in the Science of Mind magazine and beyond. This is what she wrote. When in the course of human events, it becomes obvious that the recognition of the interconnectedness of all expressions of the divine has been overlooked or misunderstood by great numbers of people, it becomes necessary to declare these truths to be self-evident. We, the people of consciousness, hereby declare there is only one indestructible infinite that is the creator of all that exists in the visible and invisible world. We choose to recognize this indescribable infinite as God. The indescribable infinite is the life essence of all that is, since it has created all that is from itself. It is the spirit within all of creation. There is one cosmology, which the indescribable infinite has been and is expressing. That cosmology consists of the entire universe as we understand it and beyond, and all that is within those universes. God as Spirit is fully within all of its creation, and its creation is wholly within it. We are one with and inseparable from God and all of its creation. What an interesting way to view life. What an interesting way to say, if I'm fighting you, I'm fighting me. If I'm trying to hurt you, I'm trying to hurt me. If I'm letting you hurt me, I'm letting you hurt you. And for both of our sakes, that's not good to do. That's not the healthiest thing to do. So I want to invite you this week, and we're going to have homework in just a minute, but to think of and to look at, where can I live in a greater interdependence? Because have you noticed, it takes all of us to live here. It takes all of us to live here. Anybody besides me noticing that? Yeah. I don't know how to pave the roads, but I sure like the fact that they're paved. I don't know how to build a car, but I sure like the fact that somebody does. Some of my food I don't know how to grow. Some I do. I had a friend in the last church I was at, which was over in eastern Washington, who wanted to teach me to fish. I asked him, where do you buy good fish around here? And he says, we don't buy good fish around here. We catch good fish around here. So whenever I would go to visit in Seattle, the first time I came back from there, I said, I went fishing while I was in Seattle. He says, really? So what did you catch? I said, well, some salmon and some tuna and some oysters and some, he said, oh, you went to the fish market. Okay? I'd rather do that in most cases than catching a whole fish. Thank you. It takes all of us working together. It takes all of us realizing that we are mirrors for each other and mirrors as each other, to start to see that and to bring the war down. So this week I want to invite you to do three things. Number one is to listen to the inner voice. Take the time and the value for your freedom to listen to that inner voice. Because the nature of that inner voice is your freedom. That's what Ernest Holmes tells us. That voice is all about how can you be more free in a healthy and balanced way. So that's number one, is to take the time this week to listen to the inner voice. Secondly, ask questions. Where in my life do I need change? And where in my life do I need greater stability? See, some of us, as we know, have lives that are in a constant change. It'd be really nice to get a little stability, wouldn't it? And some of us have lives that, I mean, they haven't moved in decades, right? You know exactly what your partner's going to say before he or she says it. You've got your schedule all worked out. It's been the same for years. Anybody know somebody like that? I know nobody here is like that because you're a scientist, but you know somebody like that, right? Okay? So where do I need change and where do I need greater stability in my life? Where do I need greater balance? And finally, number 3 is becoming willing to act out of love and respect towards yourself and others. Become willing. Now that doesn't say that I have to know how to do it every time. There's times I sit there and go, God, I have no idea how to treat that person. Show me. I give it to you. So it doesn't mean we have to intellectually figure out how am I going to work with that, aunt so-and-so or uncle so-and-so or that jerk at work or whoever it is. But to become willing. To become willing. When we become willing, we open the door to Spirit, and all Spirit needs is that door open a crack. As I was working with somebody in the relationship class this past Wednesday, and I asked that person if they would be willing to do something. They said, I said, well, would you be willing to be willing? Maybe. Would you be willing to become willing to be willing? Yeah, I can do that. Okay? Even that is enough of a crack that Spirit can start to seep in the door and start to do its stuff. And its stuff is always for greater love, harmony, and freedom. So be willing to act out of love and respect toward yourself and others. Welcome the evolution rather than the evolution. This is where we get to operate as for those of you who were here last Sunday with Esther Nicholson, this is where we get to operate in the land of the white or the ivory and the pink invitations instead of the red invitations. And if you weren't here, you probably get the context of it anyways, right? Now, this is before the 2x4s and the Mack trucks hit your body. This is when we're hearing the little nudges from Spirit. So when we start to do this, that's your homework this week. Listen to the voice. Ask questions. Where do I need more change? Where do I need more stability? And become willing to live in that state of respect for each other. Can you do that this week? Okay, thank you. Let's pray. Let's move into prayer. And so knowing that Spirit is all there is, and that Spirit is that intense freedom balanced with law. Law simply meaning that what we put out is what comes back to us. That infinite presence is pure love and pure law. And that we are free because we are one of it. To operate within that love and law. We are free to choose whatever we choose. To be whoever and whatever we want to be. And so I speak my word that we choose to be in alignment with that love, with that freedom, with that harmony for the highest and greatest good for ourselves and all around us. We begin to recognize we live in a world where we are a place of evolution rather than revolution, a place of peace and respect rather than war, a place that looks for love and harmony rather than difference and division. We open to that inner presence within us. We let it guide us through the tough times. We are willing to ask it, how can I act in this situation? Who am I to be in this presence? We simply open to that presence. We open to that love. We open to that harmony. And for this and for each person who does this, I'm ever so grateful. For the love that continues to grow and increase and expand in this world. The news won't tell us about it, but it's happening. For all that, I'm ever so grateful. We listen to the internal news that tells us of that. And so I'm willing and grateful for all this good to simply expand and express and be the norm of this world. I invite us all to join in that consciousness of knowing that this is the truth. we let it be so in our lives. And we let it be so in all of this world. And by a declaration, we turn it over to law. And it is made so. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you. I want to invite the ushers forward.